Hello, my name is T.R. Welling, and I'm going to go into part three of my long, detailed, complicated, and complex, massively complex sequence about, see here, how do I narrow it down to subjects? See here, there's the pyramids of Egypt and Rome, and the Passover concept, and the Hebrew character of Shin, a stick and a crossbar, a stick and a crossbar, no stick, the palm, and a stick and a crossbar, Shin. Now, when you apply this Shin, although it's also about the Enterprise and Gene Roddenberry and the Memento Mori ceremony, and that's what the primary purpose of the Memento Mori ceremony was. The Third Reich was about to recreate, rebuild, and redo the Memento Mori ceremony on a grand population scale. You had 1A, which was the concentration camps and the taking all enemies and being especially specifically nasty to them, up to and including mass murder, genocide, and the like. You have 1B, the Lebensborn Project, and other various assorted aspects of the camps where the Nazis, the Gestapo, the SS, and the like could do anything they wanted to, and since they were the authority, no one could tell them no. So, killing on spec and other activities on just because they felt like it was completely normal, completely an everyday thing. There's also Rome and the crucifixion of Jesus and the place where traitors were executed, were put on trial. Only some of them were executed on the spot. The rest usually Jews or other very, very careful, very specific enemies of the state would be then marched very not nicely from Trader's Post after 250 AD. Trader's Post was renamed to the Umbilicus of Rome. They would be marched north and west around the Capitoline Hill through, or at least partially through, the Curia Julii, out the gate, across the Field of Mars, to the south of the marshy area, marsh, wetland, lake, what have you, of where it was filled in. About that same time, it was filled in, and all kinds of infrastructure was built there after. Well, give or take a few decades after the crucifixion. Some of it was built before, but it was a long process to fill in that wetland to have the Pantheon and the like built in that area. So headed across the southern road, across the Field of Mars, across the bridge to the Vatican Hill, up the hill to the first. Now the hill was kind of designed like this. You went up the hill, and then there was a hill, and then there was a divot, and then another hill. Well, on the western hill, there was a temple of Janus, and on this hill was where most of the crucifixions happened. Not just one, not just a few hundred, a lot of crucifixions over the course of almost the entire Roman Empire from day one to the day that hill was quarried, because it scared the Roman Empire and the senators far too much to keep that pilgrimage site alive. So they decided to obliterate that pilgrimage site. The problem is that their efforts failed miserably. Shin, the Esquiline Hill, the middle of the forum, to the Vilia Hill. And the Vilia Hill, the entire top of the Vilia Hill is the temple of Venus. The space between the Vestal Virgins and the Sabine women and some other temples are in there, along with a large number of other really, really careful, really important buildings. Now, right here is between this part and the Capitoline Hill, that part is and facing and going north south, facing north south, is the Temple of Saturn. This is the temple of Concord, and there's another temple that I'm not remembering the name of it right now. Then you have the prison where the prisoners would be brought to be able to take them to Trader's Post and then dispatch them as according to Roman law. There's only two people who were primarily executed on that, not executed on that spot, minus a whole bunch of Jews who were traitors to the Roman Empire. That would be Jesus and Cleopatra's little sister, who was a child still at the time of her arrest and trial. She was still a child, so therefore they let her go. They let her go back to Athens and continue being a clergy for the Temple of Athena, which is very, very interesting in addition all by itself, because the Temple of Athena is named for the goddess Athena, which is she's actually the mother of Theseus, and the mother of Theseus, her previous to being defined as a pharaoh, when her relative dad, half brother, full brother, who knows, husband, who knows, the genetics are very unclear. The only thing clear is that she was also the mother of King Tut, who was born with radical genetic issues and diseases and problems. Buck teeth, a clubbed foot, and a number of other problems. There was more than 120-ish canes found in his tomb alone. Very, very likely, Theseus, being another of her children, of her sons, became the conqueror of Athens. Well, actually, no. He conquered the city that was the city of Poseidon, and then renamed it in honor of his mother, Meritaten, the Aten. And over the next 600 years, when Greek was finally invented, 500 years after he was doing what he was doing, and they were doing their thing, and the beginning of the Trojan War, an H was added after the T, an apostrophe S after an A and apostrophe S was added after the N, taking Aten to Athens. Two different things. You got Athens and Athena. Well, the names were altered over time. So you have all this information. So you have the Hebrew character of Shin. So right here is where Saturn's temple is, and right here, the base of this one is. This is Trader's Post, just past the Temple of Concord. How do I describe what happens next? What occurred next? What functioned next? Well, the best way to describe it would be that in the functionality and structure of the Third Reich, the Third Reich had just as much. The Third Reich operated in America clandestinely as just as much as they operated in Germany and Prussia and those areas, and eventually Fortress Europe, before they were beaten back by the American government, which is the definition of Antifa, anti-fascist. The entire American military was anti-fascist there for about 10 years. There's a couple of presidents in a row. All of our commanding generals were in active combat against the forces of fascism. So we were anti-fascism, which is what the basis of the word Antifa means, is against fascism. The Third Reich was fascist. So you had a clandestine operation with a couple of clandestine operations within the Third Reich. One of them was operated was ran and functioned and operated through the Koch family, and they have a compound in Wichita, Kansas. Now, Wichita, Kansas. Wichita, Kansas is a little over 100 miles north and west of Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Rio Grande, although it should be like this, the Rio Grande, or actually the Rio Grande, a portion of the Arkansas River, and the Mississippi. It's about 75 to 80%, depending on how you calculate it and what measurement points are used. This is the configuration semi-accurately. It's about 75, 80. If you want to get really technical about it, it's about 65. If you want to metaphorically, symbolically apply it, it's like 95%. The lines are not exactly dead on the money, but we're talking about geology here, and things can't be mathematically dead on. So you have the Arkansas River. Well, part of it runs several hundred miles up from the Mississippi. From the Mississippi up the Arkansas River, you have Tulsa. Now the rest of it goes up here and then does a sharp, goes north and then does a very, very, very sharp point, 90-degree bend to the west, and then has another 90-degree bend north into a place called Colorado Springs, Colorado. Although it used to be called Old Colorado City, and before then it was another city in that same exact area was and is called Manitou Springs, Colorado. Although it has been that city has been in existence in 2, 3, or possibly even 4 territories, and multitude of countries, because it was in New France for a while, it was back and forth in Mexico, as well as in New Spain for a while. It's been in Kansas. It was a little while in just a border dispute until finally it was claimed by Colorado, which has a whole mixture of interesting stuff, and a lot of the history. Now, Denver wasn't really founded until after 1870, somewhere in there. The Pikes Peak Bust Gold Rush was in the early to middle 1840s. There was 2 gold rushes, major, massive gold rushes in the 1840s. One was Pikes Peak Bust, and the other one was Eureka, the discovery in California, close to San Francisco. But that's not the point. This is the point. So you have Tulsa. Well, if you take this configuration, Gene Roddenberry, he was attached to the Monuments Men military clandestine operation, which was all about going into Nazi sympathizers, Nazi houses in Nazi Germany, and reclaiming the stolen art. Now, let's break this down a little bit more. Okay. The Renaissance, when writing utensils, writing implements of any kind, shape, or form, owning a goose, owning any kind of fowl for a while there, feathers used for writing, for making quills, which you then use to dip them in some type of indelible substance, usually a liquid, and then you write on paper or something, or some similar flat and absorbent material. Let's try to thought for a second. The functionality and structure of the Roman Empire, of Rome. Okay, you have the Esquiline Hill, and you have the Forum, and the Vilia Hill, which is the Temple of Venus, and then you have the Palatine Hill, with the Capitoline Hill illustrated symbolically through the ring finger. So you have that configuration. So you have those rivers, and you have the Hebrew character Shin, and you have the Roman form. Now, Gene Roddenberry gained access to the Renaissance, and he gained access to the Renaissance art through legal means, and his part of his job was to help transport it from A to B so that that artwork and other treasures and such could be delivered back to the people they belong to, or their family members, or their distant family members, or kept in storage, and to make sure that that eventually that those pieces of art would not fall into the wrong hands, like people who want to steal it or profit off of stealing it. He had gained access to all kinds of clandestine information. Well, he was standing in the Forum of Rome, looking east-ish, and he saw the Temple of Caesar, and then the collection of buildings from the Temple of Caesar to the Temple of Venus and the Villa Hill. And he learned that back when there were bridges, there was sky bridges, there was houses and infrastructure and such that had walkways on the roof or inside the building you walk through. So if you entered the Temple of Venus, what, when, where, why, and how, that's another part of the story. That's connected to a long lost gospel that is connected to several other medieval writers that were actually writing it at this time, before and after. And the Roman Polanski movie, The Ninth Gate, is about that journey. It encompasses some weird other interesting things. It begins with yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, Psalm 23, which would be the many centuries in the future made Colosseum. Because if you're walking down the Amber Road toward the Colosseum west out of the Forum this direction, if you're doing that, then you're walking literally in the path in the shadow east. The sun comes up in the east. You're walking literally into the shadow of death, because it has more than a few meanings. And that city, the city that was there before Nero destroyed it and created his palace from the material from King Solomon's temple, which was defined very, very badly, bad translations from Mark chapter 13, the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which that they come, of course. Mark has been used as a name many times, but it's also a title. And there's only one person at a time allowed to use Mark as a name and a title at the same time. And that would be the emperor or a king or pharaoh or something like that. So St. Mark was actually not St. Mark. St. Mark was using the mark of the emperor. Very, very likely, mathematically speaking, he was using the mark of the emperor to make his thing. Now, in Rome, there's another person who had the ability to use a mark, the signet ring onto wax, use a mark to identify himself. And this thing, if you put your signet ring on your hand, and then either ink it or put some wax down on the vellum or whatever writing sheet you use, and you seal the wax with the signet ring, you're making a mark, which is also otherwise known as a papal bull. So you're making a papal bull. So actually, technically speaking, for a little while there, while there was emperors and kings in Rome after the crucifixion, there's two people who were allowed to use a symbol, the mark of the ruler, the mark of the emperor, the mark of the pharaoh, the mark, to make the mark on official documentation. There was two people, the emperor and the pope. Well, the pope would be Simon Peter. Now, was there any connection whatsoever to Simon Peter and the papacy, not the papacy, but Simon Peter being any connection to Jesus or connection to the emperor of Rome, who was at the time Claudius? Well, actually, quite yes. There is a huge amount of evidence regarding that because it's found right there in Mark 13, which is there's another one. There's another gospel verse that it says, "Build," which in Latin translates to Peter. Your house. Your house translates to make a sacred house to the Lord. That's the in Latin. That is the word Simon. Upon would be a reference to the Ben stone. Me would be a reference to Pharaoh, the first Pharaoh, Ptah. So you have so the phrase actually means in Latin, translates in Latin, old Latin, translates to I am Pharaoh, Simon Peter. So Jesus was actually announcing his new Pharaoh name, and Pharaohs had 5 names. At least a lot of them had 5 names. So you have Jesus Christ, you have Emmanuel, you have Mark, you have Simon Peter. So you have the 5 names of the Pharaoh coexisting within the same people. Now, as Gene looked was standing in the middle of the forum, looking toward the Colosseum, toward the Temple of Caesar and the other temples to the Temple of Venus, his brain said, "I have an idea." So the bridges that I was mentioning before that I got sidetracked for, the bridges between here and here, this bridge, he saw an infrastructure. So he went to the Temple of Venus, and his brain went. There was bridges here. There was walkways and such from the top floor of the Temple of Venus, 100 or more feet up, to the Domus Julii that was on the northeast corner of the Palatine Hill is the Domus Julii. So there's a walkway between the Temple of Venus and the temple and the Domus Julii. On the other side, you have very similar. You have from this side of the Temple of Venus up to the Esquiline Hill. So to the Esquiline Hill. So you have a connection here. So you have this big, huge, long building, and then you have this big, huge, long building, and you have tunnels between. You have connectors between. You have this big long tube thing and a big long tube thing here, and connectors between. And these are like this in configuration. The Temple of Venus down here, up to the Esquiline Hill, Temple of Venus here, and then up to the Domus Aurea, the Palatine Hill here. Well, Gene saw that and went, "I have an idea." And then he learned that, give or take over the centuries, there was another bridge walkway, buildings and infrastructure and such, stretching from the eastern side of the Temple of Venus to, first it was the city of pillars that was there and destroyed thanks to courtesy of Nero, and then all those bridges and buildings and such were torn down to be able to make room for the Domus Aurea, which was Nero's palace, and then that was torn down very, very shortly after it was construction was finished on it, and the materials were used to build the Colosseum, which is what it still is right now. And his mind said Colosseum, a disc, a circular disc with a little bob thing on the bottom, and then ladders and such to the body, disc, bridges and the walkways and such from the saucer down to the Temple of Venus, the Temple of Venus, and then walkways up like this to buildings. Well, his brain said enterprise, and he then spent the next 20 years trying to develop a story around the ship, which he succeeded beyond reasonable expectations. The Star Trek universe was born through that. Now, if you take that same thing and apply it if you take the generalized shape of the Enterprise built in and the saucer, of course, if you take that and apply it to those 3 rivers, the bridge would be approximately where Colorado Springs is. Miramont Castle is a copy of the Capitoline Hill. So there's a mountain going on here. And by the way, this is this corridor right here, this corridor, this area right here of America, of the three rivers, this corridor up the Arkansas River and then then west and then up to Colorado Springs. That corridor was used by the Koch family to be able to pull some of the most precious and key treasures out of the Third Reich to put them in safekeeping in the Wichita. This is a pure guesstimate based off of the statistics of and the physics of what was involved, because very shortly after um, Operation Barbarossa, give or take some time, the Nazis got very, very, very angry and went to Birkenau and went to a guy, the head of the commandant of the concentration camp. His wife was named Eliza Koch, and he was arrested and charged with stealing from the Third Reich and executed basically on the spot. His very, very close cousin, Erich Koch, was completely in charge of the railroads and the U-boats, and he had a couple of his own Panzer divisions, which he personally took during Operation Barbarossa to invade Russia. He personally took them to St. Catherine's Cathedral in St. Petersburg and dismantled the Russian Amber Room, well, although it was originally built by the Prussians as a copy of an Amber Room that was in existence decades before and had been moved out and moved to the American continent. So you have Erich Koch, who's in complete charge of his own everything and in the sphere of his influence. He's in charge of the U-boats that are stationed in a city that he was used to be mayor of, Königsberg, and he owns the trains, and he owns he controls all the schedules of all the trains going in and out of anywhere in his influence of railroads. So he took the railroad to St. Petersburg, conquered the cathedral, dismantled the Amber Room, and then put it on his own personal train, bound for who knows where. Well, statistically speaking, he would have bound it for Königsberg. He would have then loaded all those boxes of materials and such onto U-boats, and then ordered the U-boats to sail as underwater the whole time as humanly possible. Sail it to the compound, the Koch compound in Wichita via Houston, Texas, via the Corpus Christi, via that there was a route that was taken from the dock up to Wichita, bypassing about 80 miles away, west of Tulsa. They started shipping vast amounts of looted Nazi treasure out of Nazi hands and into the Koch compound in Wichita, in order to be able to study it and to come to a full and complete understanding of what the materials used to be. Now, during the Renaissance, when writing and such was illegal and all the rest of it was a capital crime, the artists involved, the scientists and mathematicians of the time who knew they were going to run afoul of the Vatican, decided to change professions to being professional artists, but they could still continue to do their scientific experimenting and their studies and their information, but instead of writing a paper about it, they painted it, or they hired a painter to be able to make a piece of art and then sell that art to be able to fund their lifestyle and to be able to continue being able to offer scientific evidence during a point where scientific evidence was a capital crime, not allowed in any way, shape, or form. So the Renaissance artists turned to art and then started making scientific papers in art, using art, using painting, using sculpture, using a variety of other inventions and such to be able to present their ideas to the scientific community entirely clandestine. Well, as they did that, those behavior patterns entirely clandestine, the Nazis after it took them 500, 600, 700 years to figure it out, but once they figured it out, they then wanted to confiscate every single solitary piece of art, every single sculpture, all of it. They wanted to capture it to be able to find it, to do the research, to decode it, to be able to find the weapons that were hidden by the ancient masters. So you have the Enterprise. This is Shin is a configuration of the Enterprise. Shin is also a configuration of one of the symbols used for the Jews to remember to return home to Israel. Although there's a whole lot of mathematical evidence as such that states as a matter of absolute fact that it is impossible to return to Israel because Israel is not Israel. That's a Moses lie, but that's not the point. The point is that there's so much going on here, and that I've just in the last little while, day and a half, have found mathematically the Enterprise in those three rivers with the disk centered semi close to the city of Colorado Springs and its surrounding areas. So there's, and by the way, my name is Tia Welling, and I invite you to my page, subscribe, and hit the little bell for further updates of my information. And I could probably talk for another hour on various sort of things that I missed before, but you get the idea. Thank you very much.